Welcome to Writer's Way Podcast, the podcast where we step into the enchanting world of authors as we delve into their unique writing journeys and the captivating tales behind their stories. I'm your host, Jessica Wilkins, and today we're joined by Tammy Johnson, the brilliant author of a book that promises to change how we view struggle. Her work is a powerful guide to moving beyond mere survival and into true transformation. We're talking about her inspiring book, Overwhelming Victories in All These Difficulties. Tamie, thank you so much for joining us today, and we're so thrilled to discuss your journey and explore how life's biggest challenges can be transformed into defining victories.
Thank you for having me, Jessica.
The pleasure is ours, Tamie. Now let's start. What was the foundational moment or perhaps a recurring struggle that convinced you this book had to be written?
Well, to be perfectly honest, I did not know I was writing a book. I was 50 years old, just turned 50. I got married. And I moved away. All of my children were grown, and they had jobs, and they were doing okay. So I left home. The first time I've ever left home. And I started writing. I thought it was a fluke. But I had a disagreement with my husband. I was trying to figure out, I was like, God, I did not sign up for this. I did not sign up for this. At 50, you're supposed to know what you want, or should know what you want to do, and how the rest of your life is supposed to flow. Well, during that time, I went to work and I was upset, but I was trying to figure out, God, what in the world is going on? And one of the things I realized is the things that you don't deal with in your life, they come back. It may come back in a different way, but it comes back. You're going to deal with it one way or the other. So I went to work and I was feeling a little weepy. So I wouldn't go into the break room, but I was reading this devotional. Every morning I got to work, I would read a devotional, Proverbs 31 woman, and whatever that devotional was. And I don't even remember a lot that was in the devotional, except she said, tomorrow is the easiest day you will ever live. And I was like, tomorrow is the easiest day you ever live. And going on, so I worked for a while. When it came time for my lunch break, I wouldn't go in the break room. I went to my car. And I was sitting there and I was like, God, what is it about tomorrow being the easiest day I'll ever live? And it was like him speaking to me, because you're always putting off. You say, I'll deal with it later. And I would always tell people, I said, when I get tired of something, or when I'm done, I feel like I'm done with it. Not necessarily that I dealt with it, but I'm done, I'm finished. In my mind, I have these closets, and I shove that into the closet. I put a deadbolt lock on it. Then I put a panel over it, and I paint myself a beautiful mural. It's always a water scene, a sunset, over water, or something. It was calming. It was relaxing. Okay, I'm finished, and I'm going to relax in my day. That's what I thought. So in writing, when I wrote the first piece, which it was tomorrow, I was sitting in my car at that time. I wrote that piece after reading that devotional. And I was like, wow, who wrote this? Because it seemed kind of like, whoa, who wrote this? And nobody's in the car but me, and I always kept pencil and paper or whatever, a tablet or something in the car. And I called my mom and I asked her, could I read something to her? She said yes. And so I read it to her. She said, oh, Tammy, that is nice. That is real nice. Who wrote it? I said, I did. She said, yeah, but who wrote it? I said, no, I did. I just wrote it, and I asked myself the same question. Who wrote this? I said, because I don't know where these words came from. I went home that night, and I wrote 3 more pieces, and one of them was Mama Sings. And when I was writing, I was in tears, and I'm trying to figure out what in the world is going on. What did I miss? What did I do? And I'm like, God, you got to help me with this, because I don't know what to do with all this. I don't know I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what's going on, because, I was pretty okay. I was single. I had a fairly good job. I worked in the school system as an admin clerk. So, I went to a very good church, and, we were studying, and I was like, what is going on? Now, I got married, and now this looks like my life is turning upside down, and I don't get what's going on. I don't understand this. And I never stopped writing. I just kept writing, and the young lady asked me about my writing. I don't know. I'm just, I don't know what to do with this. I'm just writing. And my sister, one day I wrote this piece, and it says, what kind of woman is that? Homemade. Oh. So I called my sister and I said, can I read something to you? She said, yeah. I said, okay. So I read it to her. She said, Tammy, God is not giving you all of this just for you. Somebody else needs to read it. And I'm like, Cynthia, I don't even know what I'm doing. I don't even know why this is coming to me. These different things, this different life stuff. I don't know why it's coming to me. I said, and if I'm going to look like a fool to anybody, I'm going to look like a fool to my family. So I called my family and read this to them. She said, well, did you tell Pastor? I said, no. She said, well, if you don't, I will. I will call her and tell her. And so I called her. I called our pastor. Well, she wasn't in North Carolina then. She had moved back home. And so I called, and my pastor at the time, I asked her, could I read something? She said, well, can I call you back? I said, sure. So she did. She called me back, and she said, what is it? I said, well, it's something that I wrote, but Cynthia suggested that I read it to you. And so I'm just trying to feel it out. I said, oh my, that is beautiful. That is, wow, that is something. She said, I would like to feature it in my magazine. I said, well, okay. I didn't even know you had a magazine, but it's fine with me, And she said, well, she said, do you have anything else? I said, well, I've been writing some things, but, I don't know. She said, well, send it to me, and I'll put it in my magazine. I said, well, okay. So I did. I don't remember, because I didn't get a copy of the magazine, if she put it in the magazine or not. But I just continued to write, and then my sister continuedly insisting that I put these pieces in a book. She said, if you're writing this much, surely it's for somebody else too. It's not just for you. But I kept writing, and eventually that's when it was published the first time in 2016 with Westbow Press. And the second time it was published, it was, relaunched. It was with Authors Tranquility Press, because it was entered into the Eric Hoffer Book Excellence Awards and the Publishers Book Excellence Award. But anyway, it got honorable mention in the Publishers thing, but it didn't get anything for the Eric Hoffer. But I didn't. I had never stopped writing. I haven't stopped writing. I just continue write. When I hear something, I hear this voice in my head and these words keep coming, then I continue to write. So this was Overwhelming Victories, and like I said, the first was published in 2016 with Westboro Press, and then it was relaunched with Authors Tranquility Press. And with Authors Tranquility Press, they wanted pictures. They said the Eric Hoffer people wanted pictures in the book. Who was I talking about when I wrote it? Because there's a piece in there that says, "My dearest children." Well, everybody that read it thought I was talking about my children. But I was writing it from my mom's perspective to her children. And then there was a piece that I wrote when my husband got sick. He had cancer. I wrote the piece, I Cried. And I called my brother and I read it to him. He said, "Girl, when you can write like this without any formal training or anything, you know, you haven't gone to school for it, you just said," I said, "Well, I just wrote what I heard. Whatever I hear him say, then that's what I would write." I said, so that's the way I was writing it. The title of the piece was I Cried. We were going to the cancer center in Atlanta with cancer. There's a lot of people come in, and they go through a lot of different emotions, you know, especially men, depending on where they have the cancer at. But anyway, my husband was seeing this counselor, and so I was sitting in on the class, and he was asking, and so he didn't feel like I knew him. So I was just sitting there, and I asked the counselor, I said, "Can I read something to you that I wrote?" And so I read, he said, "Sure." And so I read the piece to him. I Cried. He said, "Oh my God. And you wrote this?" I said, "Yes." He said, if it was in a book, I would buy it, and this would be my go-to. I would bookmark it. This would be my go-to piece, because you just sat here and read this, and you said everything every woman that tried to explain how she was feeling in talking about her husband. He said it would be my go-to piece. This, he said, I would love to have it now, but this would be my go-to piece, because the way you wrote it, and it was so real, so true, and very transparent. You know, you just explained how most of the women that come into my office talking tries to explain this, and you just nailed it. I said, oh, well, that was God. It wasn't me. I was like, I know it was him, because I had a lot of things going on. And when the piece came to me, it was just kind of broken pieces that I had written out while we were at a motel in there. I started writing different little things. And so when we got back home and I was at my computer, I could sit there, and it's like the words just started flowing out of the end of my fingers, and I was just typing it up. So the book came about, but it wasn't because I knew I was writing a book. I didn't know I was writing a book. I was writing from a place of hurt, trying to understand. I was from a place of brokenness, and that we have to realize that we're broken people. All of us, we're broken people. But we need healing, and we need to deal with life. And it's not always easy. That's where the book come from. And that was just the first one. But, you know, and like I said, I had never stopped writing when I wrote that book. And I had written this piece, Behind the Mask. A friend of mine told me, she said, Tammy, I don't think Overwhelming Victories is going to be your last book. I think you have another book, and I think it's going to be Behind the Mask. She said, I don't know what it is, but the way you wrote this, it reads like it's not finished yet. And so I think you're going to have another book. I don't know when. I don't know how long it's going to take, but I know you're going to have another book. So in writing Overwhelming, my prayer is that the book gets into as many hands as possible. If you read it and something in it touches you, whether it is What Kind of Woman Is That, homemade, or a lot of people like the one that I wrote for my daughter. She's a woman now. It was her birthday, and I was in North Carolina. I wasn't able to come home. I hadn't got paid yet, so I couldn't send her anything. So I wrote this piece for her. She's a woman now. And she was having a birthday party to tell all of her friends what they meant to her and how they have impacted her life. It was her birthday party, but she was having the party for her friends so that she could tell them what they meant to her. So I sat down and I thought about her as a little girl and as the woman that has grown up, the kind of person that she is. She's loving, she's giving, she's friendly, she's sincere. And so I wrote the piece, and she said, Mama, they want to hear it. I was reading it to her, and she said, they want to hear it. So she put me on speakerphone. She said, start over. And I started over. She said, Mama, everybody's in tears. And I was like, oh, I'm sorry. She said, no, it just touched them. And it was a very moving piece. And I think that is the best birthday gift anybody has ever given me. That is a wonderful birthday present. Thank you. I love you. It was just, like I said, I didn't know it was going to be a book. And I was hoping for it to be successful and maybe I get a chance to speak about it or whatever. But, but each time I said, God, I didn't know what I was doing. But you gave me these words, and it was from my heart because I needed some healing too. I had to deal with some things too. And I had to learn how to tell. And one of the things he would always tell me was, Tammy, you have to tell yourself the truth. You have to be honest with you. So with that, I was like, oh, okay. And telling yourself the truth, you have to know that you can't make excuses for it. You just have to be honest.
Yeah.
And so that, and with the book, I've had a lot of people tell me I could not be that transparent. I could not tell people about my life, things that happened, the mistakes that I made, or I said, what are they going to do? It was your life and your mistakes, but you learn from them. And in this, we have to learn from the mistakes that we make. And if we can't encourage somebody else, then what are we here for? I want them to go farther. If they go farther than I have gone, if I made it here, and if this is as far as he wants me to be, then okay. But God, he is all-knowing, so he knows how far this is going to go. He knows who is going to hear it, who's going to touch. He already knows. He knows. He's the orchestrator. And every time I give it back to him, I allow him, okay, let me be the vessel that you use so that it can reach as many people as you need it to reach. It can change as many lives and cause them to look at themselves. You can't point fingers. It's not about everybody else, but it's about you.
Yeah.
And it's not all pieces like that. Like my son was getting married, and I had read a piece that I wrote, When We Say I Do. He said, and so his fiance at the time, she said, well, if you write something else, will you read it at our wedding? I said, well, okay. You give me something else, I'll read it. Not a problem. And the piece that I wrote for their wedding, it was like, whoa. There was a lot of people in tears. This one man, he just wept. And this other guy, he said, boy, I wish I had that on a poster that I could just put it up and read it when I get ready, Well, it's in the book. You can buy the book and flip pages and read it. But I wrote one for my husband's son for his wedding. I never got a chance to read it to them. And then when they had their baby, their first child, I wrote a piece. I written one for a young lady that I was working with at the time, and she was pregnant. They was having a baby shower, and I didn't know, and I just happened to be in her building at that time, and I just sat down and wrote the piece really quick. When I read it to her, she was just dabbing her eyes. She was in tears, and she told me thank you. I told her I hope you, enjoy it and enjoy motherhood. It is a journey, and there will be times you'll wonder, what in the world was I thinking? Have you lost your mind, little girl? But, in it is lots of love, is growing and learning to spend time, and it's important to talk to our children. So I said, well, with books, I leave something for my children, because when they read it, they hear my heart. It's loaded with different scriptures. I think there's a couple of prayers in there, but my heart and what God gave me to share. And it wasn't just for me to keep it, but it's to share it with anybody and everybody that is willing to read it, to look at it, to listen. And I hope it goes as far as it can. That and Behind the Mask, because Overwhelming Victories was the beginning. I had to get some healing. I had to do some releasing. Behind the Mask, I had to look at me, tell myself the truth. So, that's the way. So the two books are just a continuance of the story.
It's kind of, wow. You know what? This kind of girl is so inspiring. She's so humble that with her words, she can't really, without knowing that you are inspiring others. And I salute you on that, Tamie. And with that one, what is the single most important mindset shift that you think readers need to begin seeing difficult as opportunities?
You have to be honest with yourself. You have to look at you, because, it's easy to say, well, it was your fault. And if you hadn't did this, then I would know. You have to look at you. What was your part in this? Because you could have remained silent. What is it that you tried to, and for me, there was things, like I said, that I had not dealt with before I got married. So in getting married, and then when things start happening, I'm wondering what in the world is going on. I had to deal with that. I had to deal with the me within the me. I had to deal with the hurt. I had to deal with the disappointment. I had to deal with all the letdowns, because those things shape our life, whether we know it or not. You can become angry, bitter, and such a disgruntled person that nobody wants to be around you. Nobody wants to talk to you, because you are too just bitter. So you have to learn how to deal with you. You have to, and being transparent. This is the real me. I wrote this piece looking for myself. I find myself looking for myself, asking the real me, will you please stand up? Because you can have fake yous. You can, as they say, fake it till you make it. And you can pretend that it's all good, but when you come home, you have to deal with you. And it's not the fake you. It is the you that you look at in the mirror, that when you pass the mirror, you don't want to look at her, because that's not the you that you put on when you're going out. This is the you that you live with. So it's okay to say, hey, I didn't have it all together today. Yep, I messed up. I made some mistakes. I said some of the wrong things because I let my anger overrule my common sense. And common sense isn't common all the time. So dealing with you, and what kind of person do you want to be at the end of the day? Is it the fake person that, she's got it all together when everybody see you, or is it the real you that, hey, I'm broken, I hurt, there are things in my life that was not great, and in Overwhelming Victories, I had to deal with that. The things that was in my life that was not great. I was I had a teenage pregnancy. I lost the baby, miscarriage. You have somebody to look at you and tell you you're not worth it. And you're always asking yourself, will I be good enough? When am I going to be good enough? And you're always trying to be good enough. But what is good enough? So you have to be honest with you. I had to be honest with me in that. Hey, I'm not perfect. I made mistakes. I did that. I said that. But at the end of the day, I can say I'm sorry. And then I can ask God, please forgive me and give me another chance to get this right. Help me to do this and to be the person that you want me to be. The person that can reach down and help another sister up. That says, hey, you don't have to walk this road alone. I've been there. I may not have walked exactly where you walked, but hey, I've been through some stuff, and now we can walk together. We can encourage each other. But you have to be willing to be transparent to yourself, because we lie to ourselves too. But you have to tell yourself the truth, and realize who I was is not who I am right now. I'm not the same person. I'm not that little girl anymore. She grew up. She decided to make some changes in her life. So who I was is not who I am. You can't keep looking at me for the past. You have to look at me for where I am right now and where God is taking me. So those are the things that I hope when someone reads the book and they see that I'm not who I was. Yeah, I made some mistakes. I did some things, but who hasn't? We're not perfect people. Your mistake may not be my mistake, but we've all made mistakes. But as we grow, we get better. As we grow, we change some things. I want to be better than I was. I want when my children look at me, they don't see the old, bitter, sad person, that they see someone that's encouraging and motivated and hey, sit down and write a book, or to tell a story, or to use a quote, that, okay, I can do this. And that they feel inspired. My son had said, he had told one of the ladies at the church about the book, and she said, Pastor Savage, that was you in that book. You was a young fella. She said, there's some really nice quotes in there. He said, yeah, she got some really good ones in there, because I've used some in my messages when I preach. So yes, you can pull something from this here when you preach it, because even though she was talking about her, well, I can talk about me with this here. So I can use some of these quotes that she had, and that I'm not who I was. And you talking about love, real love. Yeah, you can use that. He said, because I have. I said, oh, okay, yes. and you have to tell yourself the truth. So when people read it, whether you are a pastor or elder, a minister, or a teacher, I had, he was our assistant in North Carolina. He was a school teacher, and he taught at a Christian school, and he used the book as a devotional for his class, that he would just do certain pieces, and they would talk about it, they would pray about it, and then the kids would write whatever they thought about, when they were journaling from the piece that was written. So it can be used in a tool to be used in many ways for many people. And I just tell God thank you, because when I look at it, sometimes when I read some of the pieces in there, I still cry. I still say, God, thank you, because who would have known? Who knew that I would actually write a book? Not just write one book, but write 2 books? God, who knew? Because you're all knowing. So, I just hope it encourages others. Some of the feedback that I have gotten, there was a book club that got it, and they was going to read and discuss the pieces. Some say that you give us permission to cry, to laugh, and to pick ourselves up, and to be honest with ourselves. So, with that, I'm just thankful, because who knew? I didn't. But I thank God for it, the book, and the title came from a women's conference that we was in. And so at the time, I was in pain. And the scripture in Romans is, he that loves us give us overwhelming victories in all these difficulties. So if he gives us overwhelming victories in all these difficulties, then he's going to walk me right through this here. All this minefield in my mind, he's going to walk me through it. I'm not going to get blown up, but he's going to help me to navigate it. And then if he say put it on paper and I have to write it, then he's going to help somebody else to navigate that also. So, and I hope that will be a takeaway for somebody, that, we can make it.
Indeed.
We can help each other up.
Indeed. Now, we have this saying or a quote that God did not give you anything that you can't overcome. Everything that you, yes, everything that you experience will be overcome. It's up to you on how you deal with it, whether you have to deal with it with others or just have it dealing within yourself. It's so inspiring that you deal everything with the help of others also, and you use that pieces to inspire others. And thank you so much for that, Tamie. Now, when writing the book, this has a lot of vulnerability to you. You're being bare to everyone. So what was the most difficult chapter or concept that you personally write, and why did it present such a challenge to you?
The whole book was a challenge to me. I did not know. I wasn't sure what was going on. I would hear these words. I could be driving, and I hear these words, and I'm like, sometimes I will pull over to the side of the road or in a parking lot somewhere and scribble down notes, Sometimes it was just a conversation I was having with someone, just one word, it was, and I would just meditate on that one word, sometimes for a week, sometimes just 2 days, or sometimes he just wake me up with it. And I would wake up at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, go to my computer and start writing. I was like, God, what is this? What do I call this? What is going on? But that was the way he spoke to me. I could be driving, in the shower, I could be cooking, or just having a one-on-one conversation. Sometimes I'm in church and listening to a message. The pastor is speaking that day, and he may have said one thing, and it was like, oh. And then I write that note down, but I continue taking notes. But that one word, whatever it was that stuck out, then I have to deal with that. And sometimes it was looking up, because you might have 3 or 4 different meanings. So what is this to me? And I would have to ask, what is this to me? And then I just write whatever I hear him speaking to me. And it was from my heart. And most of the people that have read it and that I have talked to, I can tell it's from your heart, but you are very transparent. I had a supervisor to tell me, she said, I could never be that transparent. I could never tell people the things that you have written in this book about your life or stuff that has happened. I could never tell anybody that. There's a piece in there, it says the days of Thanksgiving. When I wrote that piece, it was coming up to Thanksgiving, and I wasn't going to be home with I did go home with my family, but I was in North Carolina, and I was like, I have no family here. Nobody's coming to the house. We're all getting together and eating. There was none of that. But I got a chance to go home because my son is a mama's boy. He would tell his wife, I need to see my mama. So find out how much a ticket would be and when she can come home, and get that ticket so that she can come home. Have it fixed so that she can have her ticket when she come home. And so that's what and so when I wrote the days of Thanksgiving, and I went home that year, I read it at the Thanksgiving dinner. And I don't think it was a dry eye in the house, because in it, it was talking about, most of the time we talk about what we're thankful for, but we didn't actually talk about the hard times or the bad times, but we're thankful. There's always something good. I'm thankful for being here. I'm thankful for being alive, but we don't think about the things that we went through, things that we didn't understand, the stuff that we missed. And so in the days of Thanksgiving, I talk about the lost child. I talk about being an unwed mother. I talk about that. I talk about picking cucumbers in the summertime and picking peas and shelling peas and shucking corn, sitting on the carport at our house, because my dad would go when they're gleaning the fields and get a truckload of vegetables and bring back. And so our summers was sitting on the carport, shelling peas, shucking corn and stuff like that. We weren't out playing, and no, you worked. So that's what we did. But to look back, it taught us something, and it kept us out of trouble. So it was the days of Thanksgiving and the things that we're thankful for. So, some of it, and I cried all the way through it, but it was so true, and it was so real. So it's just being real with yourself, being honest with you about whatever it is.
Yes, indeed. I have a lot of questions, but you answered it everything. And I'm so blessed that I talked to you, and I'm so inspired by how you deal with yourself, how you deal with all the difficulties that you have within. And before we wrap up, I loved for you to share your best piece of advice for anyone writing about deeply personal or life-changing concepts. So how can they maintain authenticity and authority at the same time?
Well, be prayerful. Stay prayerful. And not just telling him what you want, but asking God, what do you want from me? What do you want me to do with this? How do you want me to handle this? And listen for his answer. Read the word so you know what the word says concerning you. just stay true. Being honest with yourself, telling yourself the truth, because we make excuses for ourselves, and then we are harder on others, but we have to be hard on us too. So, and to realize there was a part of me, I'm changing, I'm constantly evolving. I don't stay the same. So what I was and what I went through in 2016 and coming up to now is a different person. And so I still have to be honest with myself. I'm constantly evolving. I'm constantly asking, okay, God, I want to be better. I'm still the shy person that does not evoke a conversation, but I will talk if you give me space, or, if you want to talk to me, I can talk to you. They say I'm not shy, but yeah, I really am. Over the phone is different than being face to face, but I am. And so so when I get to a subject that inspires me, which is the Bible, then, we can have conversation. We can talk all day. But,
yes.
So just being honest with yourself and staying prayerful, asking for direction. I'm still asking for direction because I haven't gotten it right yet. So, I'm working on me. I'm working to be better. And so that's the thing, is do what you can to be better. I want to leave a memory or mark here that says, she inspired me. She encouraged me. She reached down and she helped the sister up. And she didn't judge me. Hey, we all make mistakes, but we can do better. But it's our mindset, and we have to make up our minds what we want to do and the kind of person that we want to be. So that's what I can leave them with.
Wow, that's such a wonderful advice, Tamie. And I think our listeners will really take that to heart. Thank you so much once again, Tamie, for sharing your wisdom, your insights with us. Through your book and through your experience, we shared a lot of experiences, and we take to heart what your advice had given to us. And once again, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you.
That was Tammy Johnson, the author of Overwhelming Victories in All These Difficulties and Behind the Mask, from the spark of inspiration that started it all to the mindset shift, and of course the practical wisdom that she shared with us. We hope that you were as inspired by her story and philosophy as we were. Thank you so much to our listeners for tuning in, and be sure to check out Tammy's incredible book. It's available now everywhere, of course, where the books are sold. Join us again next week for another heartfelt conversation on the Writer's Way podcast. Until next time, stay inspired and keep reading. Bye for now.